Hello, I'm Lexi. Nice to meet you. I read an article, beautiful, here. It's called The Challenge of Assessing Language Proficiency Aligned to the Common Core State Standards and Some Possible Solutions. So before reading this, I had not realized that ELP standards and ELP assessments are not actually aligned with the Common Core State Standards, which have been adopted by most states. And so that was really interesting to learn about. I took some notes, so you'll see me looking at my computer as well. Title III of No Child Left Behind was the first group to suggest that ELP standards should be linked to Common Core and that ELP assessments should be aligned to their respective ELP standards, which you think would be common sense, but it's a lot more complicated to put into place than I would have ever realized. Right now, there are varied definitions of English language learners and varied ELP standards and varied definitions of language proficiency. So that can make things really complicated for coming up with something that's really streamlined. The existing ELP standards developed or adopted by states are widely varied in terms of content and expectations at different levels of proficiency. So right now we just don't have a common framework that's set up. And while Common Core state standards are across most states, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done to align those with ELP. So there's various challenges right now that we have in our current system and that we'll have as we begin kind of aligning things a little bit better. We do have to identify language knowledge and skills in the Common Core state standards. We have to define alignment in the context of ELP assessments. And we have to articulate a new ELP standards framework that can guide states in their development of next generation ELP standards and assessments. They've been calling it in this article next generation, and that is just what they mean for moving forward when we come up with something that is aligned. That'll be the next generation of ELP standards and assessments, and hopefully that one will be a little bit more encompassing and a little bit more fair and consistent for students. At this point, this article really delves into the differences and what they're learning versus what they're being tested on, and that's just not a fair way to expect students to succeed. So 2 approaches to create the next generation ELP standards are create standards for all levels of ELP, and that's what we do in our current practice. We would just kind of continue on with that. Or the other option is creation of standards up to a threshold level of ELP only. So that would just be up to a certain proficiency level. Suggestions for next generation ELP assessments. We'll have to look at the assessment purpose and use. Do you want it to be measurement driven? Do you want it to be performance data driven? There's a lot of different ways that we can plan these assessments, and we have to figure out what the give and take is. What do we want out of it? We want to provide formative feedback to inform teachers and learning on a continuing basis, but we also want uniformity and consistency. So it'll take a lot of professionals working together to come up with the best system that is aligned and is fair and is consistent and that can be adapted over time. Determining language constructs to be aligned with Common Core state standards. We have to establish relationships between standards and assessments and between sets of standards on an abstract dimension such as language demands in addition to content and cognitive demands. And then lastly, our implications. New ELP assessments that are aligned with Common Core will help us to establish a common definition of ELL. Before this class, I had not realized that ELL is such a broad term, and there's so many things that are encompassing within that. And we need to narrow our focus on what ELL is so that we can kind of broaden our reach, if that makes sense. And it will lead to greater data use by both content and ESL teachers. The goal is that regular mainstream teachers are able to use this information to better all of their students' education. Meanwhile, ESL teachers can really focus on those ESL students and lift them up to a proficiency level and make sure that they are accomplishing the standards that are set for them as English language learners and as regular students of a specific grade level. So that is a bit of a summary of this article. I'd recommend it. Mine's heavily highlighted. But that is all. Thank you.